This being the Sunday between Valentine's Day and Family Day, we thought we'd shake things up a little bit and focus on a family marriage theme. As you know, Stephen and Debra Twiss head up our marriage ministry here at Maranatha. They're also involved in going to other churches with Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage, sponsoring speaking at seminars. So I'm going to ask them to come up this morning. They're going to tell a little bit about what it is that they do and then introduce the Mark Gungor video that we're going to use for the message this morning. Give them a warm Maranatha welcome.
This morning, Debra and I, as we've said, wanted to share a little bit of the history of our experience with Laugh Your Way, and then we'll show you a 30-minute video that's part of the seminar, and then we'll just wrap up after that, pray, and carry on. So the history of this is, about 2 years ago, we were running a Thursday night midweek program called Love and War. At the end of that, we had a little celebration for the couples that had been through that course, and we wanted to show them something funny on video as part of our celebration. And Debra found online this piece from YouTube by Mark Gungor, and it was A Tale of Two Brains. We watched it. We thought it was pretty funny. So we brought it to that evening, and we showed it to about 20 couples or so that were here that night. And literally, one of the people in the room fell off their chair laughing. I won't point them out. But we couldn't believe the reaction we got from the group there. They laughed and laughed and laughed. So we thought this was great. We went home that evening. We went online and looked up Laugh Your Way to see what was going on with it, and found out that Mark Gungor travels the world doing these weekend seminars for mega churches, 1,000 or more. However, recognizing that most churches in North America are less than 200, they had prepared a video program to make this message available to all the churches around. And they were training couples to be certified video presenters to lead on these weekends. So Debra and I were intrigued. Debra found there was a seminar in Buffalo, and so her and I and Marty and Tina traipsed on down to Buffalo and saw the weekend video seminar. And we came home from that weekend saying, this message needs to be heard by as many people as possible. We found it was funny, it was profound, it was deeply moving, and so we decided that we would get certified. Went for training, and all of that culminated with us coming back and having our first Laugh Your Way video seminar here at Maranatha a year ago, October, and we had 200 people, not quite, 180 I think, in the chapel. And the buzz when we walked into that room that night, many of you were there, and you were so ready for a good time, you were even laughing at me, which was awesome. So I know I'm not that funny. But we got through that weekend. We were fear and trembling because we were really nervous about the message, about ourselves being able to be up there speaking, and really blessed by the reaction of the audience here. And with the help that we received, many hands came together to pull that weekend off, and it was just a wonderful experience for us. Since then, we've had the opportunity to go out into other churches. And so now we've done, I think, 5 seminars, and we have done a seminar for as many as 100 here in Belleville at Desert Stream, and we've done them for as small as 25 or so at a small Presbyterian church in Bimbrook, Ontario, just south of Hamilton. And the amazing thing is that at every venue, the reaction is the same. People laugh, they cry, they just have a wonderful time, and we see the Lord's hand in this ministry, in the weekend seminar, and the real blessing that has been to us and to people there. The weekend typically runs Friday evening, Saturday morning, and it ends at 12:30 on Saturday, so people can get out and enjoy the rest of their day. In fact, the seminar is tailored for men, because men typically don't want to do weekend marriage seminars. They figure it's going to mean breakout groups, share their heart, do workbook studies. And so they tailored this for men by making sure there are no breakout sessions, no workbooks, and that they're done by 12:30 on a Saturday afternoon so they can go out and enjoy the rest of their day. So on Friday evening, we show 2 video segments called The Tale of Two Brains, Part 1 and 2. Very, very funny material. If you're interested, you can check it out on YouTube. Bits and pieces are there. Then we come back on Saturday morning, and Debra and I do a live segment. It's called The Flag Page, and it's really a way of doing an online assessment. It's partly a personality test. It's partly recognizing what you love about life and the top 5 things that would make your life more successful. And by learning that about myself and Debra learning that about herself, then as a couple, I have a better understanding of Debra's heart and she has a better understanding of mine, and that's the intent of this flag page. So we share that live and encourage couples to go online or buy the material and to do that. Then we have a break, and that's followed by the much anticipated number 1 key to incredible sex. And you can imagine, that lifts a lot of eyebrows just leading up to that. That gets the men to come back on Saturday. And again, that message for young and old, single, married, divorce, it impacts them all. And we've been really surprised how this ministry really does not just minister to married couples. It covers all relationships and all situations. Most recently, Debra and I were in Port Hope 3 weeks ago at Grace Evangelical Missionary Church. And then just last weekend, we were in Grimsby at St. John's Presbyterian Church. And Debra, you want to share a bit about that experience?
Sure. I just want to share our journey. God was doing a new thing with Grimsby Church. I'm just going to share a little bit of that story. During the seminar, Steve and I share our own testimony, which isn't a very pretty picture at all. As you come to the Lord, you ask Jesus into your heart. He starts to show you some things that you need to change in your life. And that was fine, went through some time, and then I started to really have a longing and a cry in my heart that there was more. There was some deep pain in my heart, and I had to pray and went to a pastor, and we did some praying, and God showed me some abuse that happened to me when I was just a very young child. So much that my heart died in that place, and I really shut myself down, which means I couldn't really give that part of my heart to Stephen. I didn't really have a relationship with God in that part either. So God started to shine his light in an area that needed desperate healing. And I shared that in our testimony and the grieving that I had to do to grieve what I lost. And it wasn't a short fix either when God gets into your heart, when you have deep, deep things, pains in your heart. But when I was sharing my testimony, God kept quickening me to look over to this single lady sitting in the front. I think she was sitting with her children. And as I kept sharing, I just kept my eyes going back over to her. I could see her welling up. And it was like, Lord, touch this woman. She's by herself. I can see she's in pain. And then we went out for supper that night. And then we're eating supper. And I'm like, Stephen, this woman's face keeps coming back to mine. I need to pray for this woman. And then God starts to do new things. The pastor also asked Stephen to stay and do the Sunday morning service. And that was a big stretch for Stephen. So we stayed 2 nights, and he did the service. And Stephen was preaching on the woman at the well. And his title was Being Known by God. God is the only one that knows you so deeply, that better than you even know yourself. And he shows her and how we need God's water to fill us and to fill those holes in our life so we're not thirsty anymore. He talked about being known by your spouse, being known by your children, your family. And then the importance of community and being known in community. So Stephen did a service. He did a very good job. And he also talked about prayer as he was doing his message that morning. And then afterwards, the pastor was like, Stephen was talking about prayer. And he says, I'd like to do a new thing. And he said, anybody who has anything heavy on their heart, I want you to name it. Just speak it out loud. And they've never done this before. It was quite beautiful to see. And then one by one, it just kept coming and coming from all the congregation. They would just speak out somebody's name. Somebody's got cancer. Somebody's marriage is in trouble. Somebody's kids are sick. It was absolutely amazing to watch that unfold. And that day, they also had a new music director, which also was a real treat for us. And he said, we're doing something new today. And he says, we're going to teach you 2 new songs. And the congregations, they're an older crowd, so they started singing. And I tell you, I felt so much at home. There are songs here that we sing. So we had no problem joining in worship that morning. The connection that we make with these churches, it's like you're carrying a piece of that church in your heart. I just getting in love with this more and more. Then after the service, we went downstairs and for coffee. And Stephen waved me. He says, Debra, come here. And then I was face to face again with that woman that I was praying for. And it was like God just broke my heart for her. And I just looked at her in the eyes. And she just wept in front of me. And then she said, what you shared. She said, my husband left me years ago. I have gone through abuse, and I have never shared it with anybody. And she says, and you've shown me what I need to do. I need to go pray to God, and I need to start grieving in this place. Her heart was coming alive, and God was shining his light in her heart. And now I know that she's going to go to her pastor or somebody there that she can start to pray through this and release this. And even the pastor came up and he said, again, thank you for sharing your testimony. I can see that people are going to start opening up in places where they've never opened up or shared. It was a real blessing to be part of that. And then a gentleman came up to me again with tears in his eyes, and he says, I see new life in our congregation this morning. And it just warms your heart to see that, like they're just coming out of themselves and they see what God is doing in their community. And just to let you know one thing, the 5 churches that we have traveled into, every single one of them have loved the seminar so much and what God is doing in their hearts. They say, will you come back and do another one in a couple of years? So we're like, sure, you just keep our name and call when time is due. So that's just a little story of what happens when we go into churches and watching what God is doing. And one thing I always like to leave the church with, because you do invite guests from outside who aren't connected to churches. I always say, if you are not connected with a church, please get connected. You need to have God's word in your life for you and for your children and your grandchildren. We need to be in community. We need to help one another. And we can't get into these messy places alone. Sometimes we cause more damage. And then we get so stuck in life we don't know what to do. You need a community. So I always encourage the new ones to come and join the community. That's it for me.
I know. Preach it, girl. Listening to her summarize my sermon from last Sunday, I think she should have preached it instead of me. There's a lot less stress for me, and it would have been better, I think, had Debra done it. What's on that page again? So you can see from Debra's passion and from the experience that we are experiencing as we go to these churches that we want to continue doing this, and we want to continue reaching into other communities and to share the message that Mark Gungor has, the healing that God has done in our relationship, thanks to many of you here, because Debra and I are a product of this church and the mission of this church. We were not Christians when we first walked in the doors of Maranatha. We got saved, so we were reached by you, You can hear Debra's story, and you know the restoration that's taken place in her. I've experienced similar healing, and in our relationship, there's been major healing. You've equipped us, and now this ministry is part of the releasing element, releasing the workers, and we are so blessed that we have the opportunity to do this. So we're going to press on and keep doing these seminars. We also want to acknowledge those that support us in prayer. We know many of you do. We've also had couples from marriage ministry come with us. So Ken and Andrea came to Desert Stream and supported us there at the resource table. Marty and Tina have been with us at several events as well. And again, as much as that's that forward face, that people there with us, we know it's the prayer that goes on behind that really puts the power into these situations. Yeah, and we're going to Toronto in May at a fairly large church and a very multicultural church. So that should be very interesting for us when we go there. All right, what I want to do now is just introduce you to this video. I think I got as far as saying the number one key to incredible sex. And then we have a break after that on the Saturday, and we wrap up the day with this segment that's called How to Stay Married and Not Kill Anyone. Or I think he words it as how to stay married and not kill your spouse. So this is 30 minutes when this is a good standalone teaching that we hope you will really enjoy, take to heart, and when it's through, I will come back up, I'll pray, and that will be that. Thank you for hearing us. Enjoy this.